Emily serves tea for me and my boyfriend now, said my sister-in-law with incredible authoritarianism when she took her boyfriend to meet the family and continued, "This woman is our maid. She works for us for free." "It's not hilarious," said her boyfriend, hoping that he agreed. But suddenly, the boyfriend turned pale and replied, "How can you talk to her like that? Besides, your sister-in-law, she is an important woman." After he finished speaking, my sister-in-law started crying. Welcome to our channel AB Narrative. If you are enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel and like the video to know the next stories, she said. My name is Emily. I am 35 years old and have been a housewife since I married 5 years ago. We live with her parents. They are wonderful people, and at the time I worked too. They always helped me with the housework. After a year, he, the same age as me, and my father-in-law also collaborated. We were a true team. We chose to live together following the example of our parents, who suggested that we do the same. I know that many women did not like them. I would like to live with my in-laws, but I grew up in a large family of 12 people. I would feel lonely living alone. Therefore, I was really happy when the proposal was made. My in-laws are very kind, and my wish was for us to continue living happily together despite an event. A sad event shook our harmony. My mother-in-law suffered an accident on the street and needed to be hospitalized after a heart attack while going down some stairs. After the incident, I left my job to dedicate myself fully to taking care of the house and visiting the hospital. I am immensely grateful for the support of my father-in-law. In this complicated period, my sister-in-law Nora returned. Nora has always been considered the black sheep of the family. Currently, at 33 years old, she works part-time in a clothing store and apparently does some night work. Before we got married, my father-in-law even offered for her to live with us if things got complicated. However, she categorically refused, claiming that at home she would not have the freedom she wanted. She always caused concern to my in-laws because of her irresponsibility during school. She had conflicts with teachers and brought problems for them. My mother-in-law had disagreements with classmates and a controversial case with a married man during university, which resulted in a big scandal involving his wife. According to my mother-in-law, Nora was an extremely sincere and kind person. However, because she was a natural blonde and quite attractive, she faced difficulties at school due to stereotypical prejudices against blonde women. These experiences made her more skeptical and closed, especially during high school. Nora's situation was complicated. Her teachers despised her, even though she had done nothing wrong. She always felt in the crosshairs of criticism. Behavior and school performance began to decline. I understand this well. I also studied in a rigorous school where a friend of mine, who was naturally blonde, faced difficulties. She was very sensitive and looked down when she was reprimanded by teachers. So I frequently defended her. I always protested against teachers because they judged people by their appearance. Over time, the most stubborn teachers at my school began to change their stance, knowing that Nora grew up with wounds in her heart. I hoped that she could relax while she was at our in-laws' house. Knowing that she was worried about her hospitalized mother, I decided to take her with me to the hospital. However, I was wrong to think like that. When Nora entered our house, she looked at me, and without even saying hello, she commented, "Oh, you are the employee. I would love to have tea." Immediately, my father-in-law raised his voice in anger. "Nora, apologize." "I'm sorry, Emily. She is the wife, not the employee. She seems so simple. She doesn't even look pretty. I thought she was a real employee. You have terrible taste in women." Anger began to stir inside me, but I decided to respond in a mature way and offered Nora a smile. "Hi, Nora. I'm Emily, the wife. Remember we met at our wedding?" "Oh, now that you mention it, wedding dresses. They're incredible. They can even make someone like you look a little pretty again." My father-in-law's voice resounded through the room. "Nora, enough." Surprised by her voice a year later, he came down from the second floor. He had also had his share of problems with Nora in the past. Before we got married, he lent her money that was never returned. She still told him, "Listen to what your sister says, because you are my brother." Since then, they were always at odds, exchanging hostile glances at each other. Even after that incident, Nora continued with her horrible behavior without even asking about her mother's condition, just giving orders to employees quickly. "Bring some snacks when I leave. You should be ready now." No, the one who confronted her with stern eyes was Emily, a year later. "Nora, Emily is not an employee. If you keep talking like this, you will have to leave. You shouldn't be worried about Mom. She's in the hospital. You shouldn't. The doctors should be taking care of her. At the same time, I haven't worked in the health area for a year. I can't help her." "You didn't visit her, Nora. How do you know what's going on? She doesn't just need people from the health area. She needs the family too." "You're exaggerating. She's alive." "No, that's what matters. No, it must be so serious. It's incredible what you are, Nora. Mom always cared about you, Nora. Wouldn't it be good if you showed her your face full of life?" With a sigh, Nora replied, "I'm not interested in the woman who gave birth to me." My indignant father-in-law stood up and shouted, "Your mother is not to blame for anything. You know how many times your mother solved your problems, how much love she put into you. Have you ever thought about what I feel? No one understands the feeling of being the target of whispers, of being seen differently since I was a child. Oh, I shouldn't have come alone. I came to talk about my engagement, and this is seriously irritating me." It seemed like time had stopped in Nora's rebellious phase. As she walked towards the front door to leave, I followed her. "Congratulations on your engagement, Nora." Ignoring my words, she tried to leave, but I continued. "You're not really going to visit your mother?" It was then when Nora stopped. "You're so irritating. I just came to talk about my engagement to a rich man." "I understand, excuse me." "Oh, you found an amazing man. But remember, jobs don't determine a person's worth. Of course, I admire people who save lives and support families. I respect those who provide places for people to have fun. Even housewives who may not make money but work tirelessly for their families are valuable. Every job in this world has a purpose. So don't judge people by their jobs. Your father and a year later, they are your family. Don't look down on them." As soon as I said that, her face transformed into an expression of deep hatred. She glared at me. The next moment, she grabbed. I felt a chill run through my neck like an electric shock. "Shut up, boring old woman. The employees must keep their mouths closed." Fear took over me. My heart seemed to have shrunk, causing a painful sensation in my chest. I tried to scream, but no voice came out. I was so scared that I closed the door, eyes. Then I felt Nora's hands release from my chest, and a sigh of relief escaped me. "I'm bringing my boyfriend next week. Behave like a proper employee and stay in the corner," Nora shot, before closing the door with a bang. I was hoping that her aggressive behavior would soften once she got married. That's what I thought. 3 days later, something happened while I was walking around the neighborhood to shop. I saw a little girl in the park who looked old enough to be in elementary school, with her face covered in hands, crying out loud. "What's wrong with you, dear?" I asked. "I lost my mother," she replied. I was also quite naughty when I was young, always running and separating from my parents. My brothers always found me on those occasions. "Where did you get lost?" "I don't know." After asking her name, I held her hand, and I started calling out loud for her mother as we walked through the park. Fortunately, we found her mother quickly. The woman thanked me with tears in her eyes, and upon looking closer, I recognized her as an old classmate, Lupita. "It's you. Wait, you are Emily Barcena. Barcena is my maiden name," I responded. Hearing it after so long brought back memories. I can't believe that the mother of the lost girl is you, Lupita. I am very sorry for the upheaval. My daughter, I was chasing a bird, and I lost sight of her. Thank you very much. After sharing a laugh, we decided that our meeting was destiny, and we exchanged contact information, promising to have coffee together one day. We had been in the same class, but not the same group, so we didn't interact much. But now that we are adults, I feel that we could have gotten along well. Even at that time, the next day, I went to a cafe with Lupita. She was also a housewife, and her daughter is currently in kindergarten. While we were chatting about our childhood and recent events, time flew. When the conversation got to the topic about marriage, my face seemed a little distressed. My older brother is finally getting married, but I'm a little worried. The girl he is going to marry was known as a delinquent in our neighborhood. Maybe she has become a better person if my brother wants to marry her. I hope so. By the way, did you know that my brother had a crush on you, Emily? I was surprised that we weren't in the same grade. Right. You were quite popular, Emily. Everyone had a crush on you. You knew that, even the boy who I had a crush on. Did you like her? He told me her name. His face came to mind, but I had no idea that he had a crush on me. In fact, I was a little envious of you, but that's in the past. I feel relieved now that I've told you. He laughed. Wow, this is a bit complicated. I never would have imagined that the popular Emily would end up marrying the mature man. A year later, when Lupita said that, she frowned and laughed. A year later, I were in the same class in primary school as Lupita, but at that time, we weren't. We had interaction. He was less than an acquaintance to me. However, in a meeting 10 years ago, he confessed that I had always liked him. Since I was a child, when I heard this, I knew I didn't want anyone more than a year. Even now, I'm happy we met and married. Then it was time for Lupita to go find her daughter, and our day came to an end. After that, I visited my mother-in-law in the hospital, and we talked about Nora. As expected, my mother-in-law was worried about Nora and said that she needed to receive the high immediately, trying to move unnecessarily that day. A year later, I was on a business trip. My father-in-law and I would take care of everything instead of my mother-in-law, and you would make sure to examine her partner carefully. Maybe when I mentioned this, my mother-in-law laughed at the sight of her, so I began to prepare with determination for the presentation of Nora's boyfriend. So, on Saturday, Nora brought her boyfriend. Remembering the incident last week, Nora grabbed me by the neck and shouted at me. I trembled with fear. I had to pull myself together and manage to smile. Her boyfriend was a robust man and seemed quite strong. For some reason, when he saw my face, he seemed surprised. My father-in-law and I invited them in and asked them to sit while I prepared the tea. I heard my father-in-law and Nora's boyfriend exchanging greetings in the living room. However, I lost his name while I was busy boiling water. When I came back, I had to greet him properly. I thought of this while preparing the tea and placing it on the table. When I returned to Star's room, that's when Nora gave me a teasing smile and said, "This woman, she is our maid. She works for us for free." It is not hilarious during our marriage presentation to say such a thing. Nora must be out of her mind. Even though she despises me, I should not put it into words. My father-in-law immediately reprimanded Nora. "Nora, stop it. Jackson, I apologize. Nora, why are you calling her a housekeeper?" Despite his robust appearance, Jackson spoke kindly, but was frowning, looking at Nora. Well, that's what she is. Not who else would wear her hair in a single bun nowadays, wearing cheap clothes with jeans and a graceless apron at the same time. At least it looks like she's wearing makeup, but I bet it's cheap, unbranded makeup. She looked the same when she came last time. I can only think that she is like that. It seemed like my father-in-law was holding back not to scream. As for Jackson, his face turned pale. Did you know that we studied in the same elementary school, right? When Nora was in 7th grade, she should have been in 9th. I thought everyone in the neighborhood knew that. Then my father-in-law responded, "My daughter seems to have little interest in anything beyond herself. I'm sorry, both Nora and I were confused without understanding what they were talking about. By chance, you know who I am?" When I asked Jackson, he smiled. "I apologize for the late greeting. Were you Emily Barcina before you got married, right? Maybe you don't know me, but my name is Josue. I heard that my sister recently met you." "Oh, Lupita, your sister was saying that your brother was going to get married." "I never imagined it would be with Nora," I exclaimed, surprised, my voice coming out a little too loud. "By the way, what does it mean that the people in the neighborhood know about me? Because I come from a big family." When I asked that, Josue laughed and answered, "There are several reasons you don't know Mrs. Barcina. You were quite famous around here, not only for being pretty but also for standing up to stubborn teachers and changing their attitude. I was the president of the student council in primary and secondary school, and it is said that the number of boys you rejected exceeds 300, among other stories." When hearing this from Josue, I felt my body heat up with shame. Surely my face must be turning red. "Oh, come on. What are you talking about?" I knew that people noticed me because I was among 10 brothers, but I didn't do anything that great when I was a student, and I only rejected about 5 guys who confessed their love for me. "I heard from my sister that you stood up to teachers to protect a boy with blonde hair. Naturally, the prejudice against them did not change immediately, but the teachers' attitudes changed gradually." "So," Nora answered loudly, "Emily and I were not in different schools. I mean, I was constantly seen with biased eyes at school." My father-in-law sighed and began to speak. "Nora, Gabriel was in the same school as you. Despite the softened attitude towards girls with blonde hair, you went ahead and had your hair in even more extravagant colors. Of course, the teachers would get irritated with that. So, if I hadn't dyed my hair blonde, hair would have been acceptable." Nora seemed surprised, but after lowering her gaze, for a moment she raised her face, smiling in a somewhat sinister way. "But Emily, although you were so active during your school days, now you are just a simple housewife. You can't even dress elegantly. Poor, take care of your mother-in-law, and doing housework must be difficult. No matter what glories you have had in the past, now there is nothing to brag about. That's what happens when you choose an office worker like my brother to be your husband. I'm not the real winner. Now you are really pathetic." Nora seemed more as she spoke, ending with a laugh. My father-in-law seemed about to retort, but I anticipated it. "That is just your opinion. It is not true. I am very happy now. I live with a kind father-in-law and a loving mother-in-law and a husband. Dear, my mother-in-law is in the hospital now, so the house is a little lonely, but she will be able to be discharged in about 2 months. I am thinking of taking good care of her. Even from you, I want her to live a long life." Hearing my words, Nora looked down. "Besides, I'm not interested in fashion. Dressing well can make my husband happy, but it's not useful for anything else. As long as we have enough money to live, that's enough. We were poor when I lived in my parents' house. I think about the time when 12 of us lived in a small house. Compared to now, it's like heaven." Then Jackson composed himself and spoke to my father-in-law. "Sir, excuse me, originally I came to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage. However, after hearing Nora's words, I decided that I don't want to marry her. Please forgive my lack of courtesy." My father-in-law responded. After this conversation, it is clear that not many would want to marry Nora. I will not say anything. Even if he gives up on the engagement, Josue apologized again. Then he stood up. Nora, who until then was stiff, lunged and grabbed his leg. "Wait a minute. It was you who proposed. No, how can you talk about giving up on marriage so easily? I don't want to live with someone who treats my brother's wife like an employee and ridicules her in my house. In my house, there is my brother, his wife, and my sister. I can't stand it if my family is hurt by you. I will be kind to your family, that's for sure. Then Jackson sighed. So you change your attitudes depending on the people you despise, those you perceive as inferior, and you flatter those you see as superior? That's not the case. I'm sorry I didn't realize that you were like this before, but now that I know, I can't love you more. Please let go of my hand if you understand. Upon hearing this, Nora released Josue's hand. He fell to his knees and began to sob uncontrollably. My father-in-law and I left Nora as she was, and we accompanied Josue out. After that, Nora moved house again. Whenever she faced financial problems, Nora turned to my father-in-law, who always helped her. But now, due to his lack of respect for my mother-in-law and for treating me like an employee, she decided that she would not lend him any more money, even if he begged for it. Nora is currently working in a clothing store because she is too old to earn money with night jobs. However, she seems to be facing difficulties as she cannot buy designer items with her salary alone. No one wants to help anyone who only thinks about money. After being abandoned by Josue and receiving cold treatment from my father-in-law, Nora looked for my mother-in-law. It is shocking how she cried and begged the sick woman for money. My mother-in-law, far from worrying about her own illness, was saddened to see Nora crying and playing the victim. Then my mother-in-law decided to cut ties with Nora, and since then, Nora has not been seen again. After that, my mother-in-law was finally discharged from the hospital. She needs a crutch, and I support her physically. I started to find ways to make household tasks easier so that my mother-in-law could live comfortably. After a year, my in-laws began to express their gratitude towards me. I am the one who should be grateful. All of you have been a great help to me. Thank you, I said, and everyone gave warm smiles. That already makes me feel happy. I have kept in touch with Lupita, and occasionally we go out for coffee. Recently, I discovered that I am pregnant. Everyone in the family was very happy, and my parents and siblings came to congratulate me one after another. I am really happy that everyone is celebrating with me the birth and raising of the baby. They will be challenging, but I want to live each day, valuing each moment. Thank you for listening to the story so far. Now, I would love to hear what you think about this story. Leave your comment below, share your impressions and opinions, subscribe to the channel, and like the video to know the next stories.